All right, welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie, that's me, and Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl.
Luke, how are you? Short week this week. Lots of complaints from everybody about how they now have a 4 or even 5 day or even 2 week long because people have taken Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off this week to make for a Christmas size break in the middle of the year.
It's hard for some small business to sort of adapt, and there's certainly a cost as well.
Did you hear the Queen died, Luke?
Apparently. There you go. Hence the public holiday today, which is when we're recording this one. And I just wanted to make a quick mention as well, coming off the back of the podcast we did with Sean Guzzi, where they were speaking about a change to the AS 1170.2 standards. It covers structural requirements for solar installations. Now, it doesn't sound very sexy or interesting, but people need to be across this. So I know Clenergy and Nika have a webinar coming up. Smart Energy Council's doing some road shows. So it doesn't sound interesting, but it absolutely will impact on how we're installing panels. So you should look into it.
So this is particularly important for people doing commercial, yeah, Luke?
Yep. All right. Well, let's jump in with our guest today. Our guest today started in solar in 2003, working for Solco. He's also worked over in London. I had no idea about that for a year, and then spent best part of 10 years at Infinite Energy. He's now at West State Electrics as a new business development person. We've known him for more than 10 years, Karl. So it's an absolute pleasure today to have Rohan McGlew on the show.
Hey, guys. How you going?
Good. It's great to have you on the show, Rohan. You always bring life to the tours, parties, events, and so on for your great wit and humour. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Karl. But you lead by example with that one, so I'll.
Here we go. I'm going to get shit from the missus about the Karl and Luke Self-Appreciation Society again.
I have to say, though, there's been some ripper times, and quite often at those amazing things that we go to, I see your smiling face. So you've done pretty well over the years, yeah?
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. Solar's treated me very well over my nearly 20 years. The trips especially, I think that's where a lot of the relationships and good times always stem from.
Can you remember our first trip, Rohan?
To Singapore?
Singapore.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about some stuff to say about that, but I was actually thinking about the first time I met you when you were in with Andrew Hall, looking at TL inverters in Subiaco, I think it was, or somewhere in there. That was a long time ago. And I was a HF transformer fan, and I wasn't all that keen on transformerless inverters back then. I thought they were a bit of hogwash, but I was well wrong.
You were the expert on how to blow up a PVE 1200 in 6 easy steps, yes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, mate, we were wholesaling them back then, and the low voltage advantage electronics inverter. Good inverter, actually, like if you did it right, but so many people used to cook them. There was one guy that would ring notoriously, Rohan, I cooked another one, bring me it out. It's like, yep, no worries. That company's not around anymore. But yeah, I think he cooked about half a dozen.
Are we learning yet?
Yeah.
As a tangent off that, Rohan, companies that aren't around anymore. So the Social Energy is one that went into administration recently, and the whispers are that there's around $10 million worth of creditors. So there's going to be some pain felt. I can't remember one that's been that big.
No, mate, that's pretty big.
You got to wonder how a wholesaler can survive a $500,000 loss or even $250,000 loss.
Not to mention the contractors, the installers who haven't been paid for multiple jobs. Hurts them just as much.
Yeah, I'd say there'd be a lot of those, which is a real shame.
It is.
They're the ones doing all the legwork. We're very aware of that where we are, or where I am at the moment, making sure we get paid properly and paid on time for our work.
You've been in most areas of the industry, really. So you're wholesaling, you've been involved in many, many other things.
So I started off manufacturing water pumps and off-grid power systems back in 2003 at Solar Energy Systems, which was great. I really cut my teeth in solar there, and I was lucky enough to work with people like Chris Middleton and Anthony Maslin two guys I learnt a hell of a lot from. Maybe not so much from Maslow with the solar, but certainly from Chris, I really did. Yeah, and then from there we went into wholesale, acquired a wholesaler, Choice Electric, and we got to work with John Cooper, who many people know. We're really lucky to be there. And that we actually did rotor molding hot water systems as well. So I got a bit of experience in rotor molding plastics, hot water systems. So we had thermal experience, PV experience. So yeah, I was really lucky and got to go to the UK and do some work over there with a company, setting up an office in London and doing all the 1.5 kilowatt jobs in townhouses in central London, which take about a week to install, which was an eye-opener for me.
For those people that don't understand, obviously you're in Perth at the moment, and a solar system in Perth makes on average 4.4 kilowatt hours per kilowatt installed. How bad is it in the UK?
Yeah, it's a lot worse than that, Karl, and it's to dig up a book to remember the numbers back there, but it was less than half. The biggest problem were the parapets. We'd be putting panels hard up against a parapet wall on a roof because that's all we could get up there. We might only get 4, 6 or 8. We're using Sharp 167s, I think, or 175s, something like that. I think they're a 72 cell, 5-inch cell, and doing a 20, 30 metre DC run down to the basement along with all the home electrics. You'd shove a Fronius inverter in there and away you'd go. But it was a 5-day job, setting up SCAF. The cable runs were intense.
And the cost must have been huge.
Horrendous. Yep. Absolutely horrendous, Luke. Yeah, I haven't thought about it until just then. I'd have to dig it up, but it would have been, around 15,000 back in the days of what it would have been, in 2004, 2005.
And you came back to Australia and you're part of the Infinite Energy journey from fairly early on. And that was almost 10 years. Infinite were one of the most respected companies in the industry. What were some of the keys for you guys to build that business to what it was?
Look, I was really fortunate to be there. That company was headed up by Aidan Jenkins, and his two brothers were in there, Chris and Phil. One of the best things about it is they're good people, and they've got a moral compass, and I think that's a great beginning for any business. Yeah, look, I don't know what number employee I was. I think I'm probably still in the single digits just. Yeah, look, the journey was unreal. We had a lot of like-minded people who had a thirst to do well in business and create really good outcomes for clients. We didn't want to have people have bad experiences, and we pushed the envelope. And Karl really helped us with that as well. I remember when I first got there, the system sizing we were selling was, 1.5 or maybe a 3 kilowatt. And, I was fortunate enough to have a business before that where, I really pushed the boundaries, and we'd put 8.5 kilowatts on a 5.
A 10 on a 5.
There were a few 10s on 5s, Karl. There were a few, mainly around about 8 to 10. And, I got into Infinite, and I think I sold one not long after I'd started, and it was, the biggest system they'd sold. And then literally a week later, everyone else was selling them.
We pioneered this together, Rohan. It was, hang on a minute, half the year, this system's not making 5 kilowatts. We should put more panels on these things.
That's right. We overcurrented the hell out of those SMA 5000 TLs and the IG60s. And I think the IG60s might have been a little bit more generous with their output than what they stated. We really drove it and showed people what we could do. And that's probably one of the things that I really thrived in at Infinite was we had a really good sales team. And as soon as we showed people something that was possible, then everyone latched onto it. So I don't remember when system sizing it wasn't at 6.6, but we were bucking trends early in the day. So I think the average system size in the country was around 3, 1.5 to 3. Our average system size was 5 to 6 quite early.
That was because of the rules, though, right? Western Power won't let you connect in WA anything more than 5 kilowatts and still be eligible for a feed-in tariff. And at the time, you couldn't connect more than that on 3-phase, even if you wanted to.
That's right.
Actually,
That's right.
speaking of three-phase, Rohan, do you remember the day I delivered you an IG55 V3 and the Sparky said, no, mate, I'm after an inverter, not a fridge.
They were humongous.
That's not an inverter, it's a fridge.
I felt sorry for the people who actually put them on their houses. You could have used it as a structural support. I think it was so big.
It's funny. Adrian was ahead of his time there, as in Adrian Naron, because that was a 10 kilowatt inverter, but it was the only market in the world where we needed a 5 kilowatt three-phase and nobody was making one.
Yep.
So Adrian to the rescue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's another person I was lucky enough to meet up with and have some fun with. Actually, I was thinking about some times with Adrian. He was really excited about the first snap inverter, and he'd shown us all these pictures of the snap inverter. And the one he'd shown me, was like a normal Primo 3 snap, but it had a stainless steel cover on it. It looked awesome. It looked like a spaceman's backpack. And when they delivered this thing, we got a pre-series early on, and we opened it up, and it had this cover it's got on it today. I was like, Adrian, where's the stainless steel cover that makes it look like a spaceman's backpack? He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, this is crap. Like, take it back. I don't want it. I didn't realise.
I want one in polished aluminium, thanks.
I want his polished out. Yeah, I want it all shiny. And the poor guy sent it back to Austria, and apparently the guy was devastated who had sent it. So it's actually pretty funny.
So that was a key thing as well, that you've always had really good relationships with manufacturers and key people around the industry.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough at Infinite to sort of fall into that role, really. When we started off and we were pretty small. Yeah, look, it was great. I was trying to think about some stuff today for the podcast while I was at work, and the relationship with manufacturing. And one of the things we did at Infinite, and I don't know if we're one of the first, we would have been early. I don't think we were the first, but the trip up to Singapore was really innovative for us. I mean, I wanted to see more of the solar industry. I wanted to see a manufacturer, and I wanted our salespeople to have real life experience. One of my pet peeves is that I don't know what percentage of the solar salespeople have really got no idea about solar. I'd say well over 50%. I think that's a very safe bet. But I wanted our team to know about cells, to know about stringing machines and getting laminated and things like that. And so we spoke to Karl and probably Jeremy Rich, and then our CEO, Aidan Jenkins, and worked out a way that we could get our whole company up to Singapore, up to see REC. And honestly, I was thinking about it. It's probably one of the highlights for me in my working career was able to get, how many did we get up there, Karl? 30?
It was 30 because all of those Energy Matters didn't have the money at the time, and I put all of those airfares on my credit card. So literally Energy Matters paid me back a month and a half later, and as it turns out, that was the best money any marketing department has ever spent, because you guys went from 10% REC and 90% other stuff to 90% REC and 10% other stuff almost overnight.
Yeah, it was great, and it provided a culture within the business that we'd been to this factory, we knew about it, we saw the crucibles being made where the ingots are formed, and watching them get cut up, and how raw that manufacturing process really is. It's very raw, it's very noisy, and then going into the cell labs and seeing all the cells get made and doped, it was incredible. And then from there, it was just a thing. We ran sales incentives internally in the business where we helped contribute to the trips for people. When we were there, we'd been to REC, Q-Cells, and we'd taken people to Europe and to China to see different facilities, and it was just great.
I mean, it helps on the sales side, but also operations and being strategic about selecting stock. If you actually understand the technology and you know what you're looking for, it's helpful to back the right horses there.
Yeah, well, when we took everyone, it wasn't the sales staff, it was everyone. It was our receptionist, it was accounting, and the most important was our bookings team. We had 2 or 3 people doing bookings at that point, or admin and bookings. And they all came, and so they got to see firsthand what was going on. So when they spoke to the clients and they'd bought an REC system, they could have a conversation about it as well and say, oh my God, I went there, they're great. And it tied it all together really nicely.
So, Ro, you mentioned about how Infinite were ahead in terms of system sizing, and you went to the larger system sizes, but that also carried through when batteries were still reasonably new to market.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going now? Where are the frontiers?
Look, I think naturally everyone's just going for car charging. I think I kind of think about it as in as the car battery changed in the last 50 to 100 years, it has a little bit. There's gel batteries and there's lithium, but if you look at a car battery, it's pretty standard. It hasn't changed a hell of a lot from a wooden box with a liquid battery in it. The tech's got better and a little bit more efficient. I think going forward, if we go back 5 years, what's changed? Really not a lot. In terms of the functionality, we're still getting DC on the roof and we're converting at ground level. We're doing it a lot better, and the systems have got more functionality and they've got more apps than you can poke a stick at, and metering. Car charging is obviously really key as well, how that's going to integrate in. But I think people get lost in trying to make everything so automated to capture every last drop of energy, rather than thinking about simplicity, what the cost of automation is. And what I'm trying to get at is, what's the future? And the future is probably better battery tech, whether they're bromide batteries or whether we can get home vanadium batteries. There's still a battery that store energy regardless of the tech. I'm trying to work out how to make everything a little bit simpler and not spend another $2,000 to a client to just get exported solar energy to their vehicle during the day, when you could probably just have a switch and turn it on. And if you take a little bit from the grid and you miss a bit of the solar, it might be a couple of bucks. It's probably not a big loss, and it's a lot less complicated. I'm not saying that's the solution, but where does it go from here? Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be hugely game-changing in terms of storing energy and using it. But the tech that's coming, in terms of battery tech, car charging as well, and be interesting to see where modules are going to go. I mean, they're changing in terms of their capacity so rapidly.
What classes change from when you quote to when you install the job?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes a mockery now of actually even being able to replace faulty panels, in 2 years' time. If there's a fault to replace, the module probably isn't even available anymore. Yeah, look, it's interesting. But look, for me, it's more about having just really solid, reliable systems and making them less complicated for customers, and making sure that when we integrate in with systems that we do it in a really smart way, and that when you do it right, and you don't do it to upgrade later. We do everything all at once. And one of the things I've always said to people is, I've never had anyone come back to me saying, Jesus, Rohan, I wish you'd sold me less panels. You put up as much as you can when you can, and you put in as much storage as you can when you can. And I think everyone will be very happy if they can do that.
Looking at reducing carbon and the amount of solar and storage that's going to have to be deployed on the grid, the numbers are huge. The critical thing is just getting the panels out there.
Yeah. Look, we've got to get the energy on the roof. For me, I think products like Switched In are key, especially for our business, and for integrating and for solving problems. It's an absolutely fantastic product. I think there's Ubi or Mondo Ubi. I've never used that, but I think that does a similar function. But we use Switched In. Really good product for integrating and solving problems, especially for us in WA.
So do you do your fleet management through the Switched In, or do you still stick with the manufacturers?
We do both.
Okay.
Yeah, we do both. We don't offer, the client can jump on the Switched In if they want. We don't provide it for them. We use it from our side for management, for the battery systems as well, so we can tunnel in and, if we want to do anything or do some export control, maybe if it was, if there was an incorrect setting done at the time, then we can tunnel into the inverters and change settings remotely rather than going out to site. So, even the cost of the unit will pretty much pay for itself if you've got to go and do a setting change.
So you pioneered that though, Rohan. Back in the day, you used to say to me you didn't mind if the installer didn't set up the Wi-Fi because you could send the sales guy back and he could get a review from the customer. He could touch bases with the customer, happy with the install. And that really wrapped up the whole experience for the customer. And obviously, Infinite was spectacularly successful. Well, you must have got lots of referrals from that activity.
Yeah, look, we did. You know, when the Galvo first came out, I remember speaking with Adrian and just saying I was desperate to know who had the biggest solar web account in the world. I had a mission to have the biggest solar web account in the world. And I don't know if we had the biggest one in the world. I think we might have come pretty close, actually.
Would have been pretty close. So thousands and thousands in WA.
Yeah. Look, I think it was, it might have been 6,000 to 8,000 sites we eventually got up. Yeah, look, one of the things I really wanted to do was have the biggest site and get everything connected. And it also gave our sales guys, like you're saying, Karl, more of a chance to go back to clients, set up the Wi-Fi, but give them some more tech understanding of the systems rather than just standing there going, this will do this and this will do 4.4 kilowatts per kilowatt installed and it will pay itself off, when really they've got some more real-world experience and they've got real-world data.
They could go to a client and say, oh, you've got a west-facing roof at 250 degrees. We can fit 4 kilowatts on. Oh, look, here's one I prepared earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, that was key. So we had key sites that we had targeted and we were very fortunate with all our sales team worked together. It wasn't any one person. They all worked together extremely well and we shared information. You know, we competed hard and had a lot of fun doing it, but we shared the information and no one held on to anything. I think that's, going back to why Infinite was successful is everyone shared. Everyone was part of a team. Actually, I was trying to think of something funny about Infinite. We grew. We had an office in South Perth and we were probably at about a 30 or maybe a 40 head count. Might have even been 50 head count. But we had to rent another building 2 doors down. And we had fibre optics, I think, running between the neighbouring buildings and us to link up the 2 buildings for the network. And one day we had a party, work party, and there were people in each office that had actually never met each other. They'd been working for 3 or 4 months but never met each other. And it was at that point that we realised we needed to get a new office where everyone worked in the same building. They were really good times. And, we were, I think for 4 years, we employed a person a month. I think that was the average. It was just always new starter.
I think my favourite, Rohan, was the mojito guy. He wasn't very good at what he was doing, but he made an excellent mojito. So they said, well, we better keep this guy on because he makes a great mojito.
Oh, there may have been some of that.
Actually,
that's a good time.
Reminds me of one of the Europe trips when we, I can't remember the name of the inverter manufacturer, but, the Thursday night, they're dishing out free drinks at Intersolar. And one of the Infinite guys says to the bartender, do you do mojitos? And he says, yep. And he says, I'll take 10.
10, yeah, I'll have 10 of those. Yeah, we had a great Christmas party one year at a bar in the city. And I think Aidan just went to the bar and just said to the guy, just keep making mojitos and do not stop. Just keep them coming. There were some good nights there.
We certainly had a good couple of years there when there were lots of RECs and SMAs being sold through Apollo Energy, Energy Matters, Jeremy Rich. I can certainly recall the big party at Nobu.
Yes.
They mucked up the bill and they only charged us for the food and not the drinks. And we were literally leaving at high speed, having realised this. And, of course, they followed us out and said, oh, Mr. Walker.
And then Jeremy and James look at each other. Who's going to pull the card out?
Who's going to... Look, they were good times. And, it shows that, relationships are key. The relationship we had at EM was unreal. And it helped us grow. They respected what we were doing and we respected what they were doing. And the 2 businesses worked fantastically well together. I think we were the number 1 customer for quite a while.
Absolutely.
Certainly, I think you were or my only ever $1 million a month account.
Yeah, look, they were really exciting times, and they're still, those times are still available. They're just a bit different. It's the same but different. But yeah, look, the key is relationships, and I think that's one of the things that I've tried to be really focused on, is make sure the relationships are good. I have great relationships with you two and all the suppliers that I deal with. It gets pretty personal, in a good way.
We even did a triathlon together, Ron, with 6 weeks notice.
Yeah.
I contacted, if I can just tell the story, I contacted Ron and I said, hey, Ron, there's a duathlon coming up, which is a ride and a run. I said, I've always wanted to do one. Would you be keen? I tried another couple of guys, Emmett and Shane, and they said no. And you said, I've always wanted to do a triathlon. So my swimming skills are pretty terrible. So I had 6 weeks to be able to get there, and I only just made it out of the water too. You're waiting there patiently at the transition point.
Yeah, well, I mean, not to rub salt in the wounds. I mean, I'm no great swimmer either, but yeah, I was out a clear few lengths ahead of you. That's for sure. I was quite good. I had a bit of time to catch my breath before the next leg. But look, I mean, I think one of the other things about solar is, we do a bike ride as well. For all the listeners out there, Luke and I, James Charles, Emmett Gray, Shane Arnold, Jack Walker, Emma Schmidt, we're all part of a team called the PV Chain Gang. And we raise money for the Perkins Institute, which is there to try and make cancer a non-lethal disease. And it's really nice. When we started that, what was that, 3 years ago?
We're doing the third one soon. And we've had amazing support from industry too. Companies like Fronius, Clenergy, SunPower, plenty of others.
Canadian Solar
gave
as well.
Generously. Coming back to that, Ron, I think I heard you say in a speech last year, you're one of the speakers at the main event, and you said, nothing prepares you for a cancer diagnosis, and had minimal preparation for the ride. So there's parallels. And I think this year we've probably prepared less. What I might do for those listeners who want to support our ride, the PV Chain Gang, I'll put the links into the notes of this episode. So if you can reach into your pocket and give to that, it really is a good cause. The Perkins are doing lots of research and making lots of breakthroughs to fight against cancer.
Yeah, look, absolutely. But I think what it highlights is that when we started that ride and we did the ring around, we all compete out in the open market together. And this is true for the whole solar industry, and it gives me a really warm, fuzzy feel, is that when we need help, then we band together. Even though we all compete as an industry, we come together extremely well. And listening to Kathleen's podcast she did with her, it's the same thing. The people are fantastic, and it's what keeps me in the industry. I mean, from all the trips that Fronius has organised, and that's probably where a lot of it stemmed from. The people are what make it.
The last podcast with Kathleen Ryan had the most first week downloads out of any of the episodes we've done. I came away from that one feeling really positive and lifted up, and that's been a lot of the feedback we've been given, is that people listened and they felt positive and inspired and everything else. And I think she's lived and breathed that in the industry.
She's an absolute firecracker, completely. Oh. I mean, every week, every fortnight, I say to Luke, we're just so lucky to have such great people on the show. And Kathleen definitely lifts the mood and opens your eyes as to how young we are in the industry. She's been doing it since before I left school.
Oh, mate, look, she's inspirational. Just to listen to her and her positivity is great. I mean, I didn't want to steal her thunder, so I'm playing it down a little bit today, just so that she can shine nice and bright still. But no, she's a weapon.
But similarly, you've always been a very positive sort of guy. Like, I've known you for over 10 years now, and you've always had a positive outlook. You're one of those people as well.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, I try to be. I think there's not a lot of time to hang your head in your hands. You just got to keep going and push on.
Rowan West State, they originally did a lot of installs for Infinite, and then obviously when Infinite dissolved, you went into West State to to grow what, their PV business, their electrical business, or operations? How did it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess, God, I mean, I've been working with Wayne and Tim there for 7 years. So it's sort of, our two businesses worked hand in hand together for a long time. They were just an extension of Infinite for a long time. And look, I went in there to do a little bit of retailing, really. That was it. I mean, in the start, it wasn't. While Infinite was still running, I was there to try and do some more commercial and LED lighting stuff, just maybe not so much solar. But, when Infinite shut down and a lot of the work dried up, then we made a decision to do a little bit of retailing. So we do a little bit. We're not really gung-ho into it, but we do enough to keep our own teams busy, and then we do contract commercial work, which we're really strong in. And I think, look, there's a lot of good installers in Perth. I think I can easily, confidently say we're the best, along with a number of other companies that have really good people and that moral compass. And the guys know who they are. I still talk with them, and we have ping pong matches against them with other businesses that we still compete with out in the market. When we need help, we still speak to each other.
And you get value out of just sharing information and experience too. Yeah,
look, and I'm all for sharing info. I don't like sharing it with everyone, but the people who have got the same morals as us, then absolutely, like we all work together. We all want to find a solution. But yeah, look, at Weststate, it's great. Look, it's a really good environment. We've got really good people, and I think look, over the next 12 months, I think we'll be a really dynamic, streamlined business. We'll do some commercial, residential. We're really focusing on some off-grid work. We like doing that. The guys like going out and doing it. And then just sort of whatever else is out there on the horizon for us.
So speaking of which, Rohan, there's been a fair bit of talk in the community forums about Western Power's enforcing a rule around a 32 amp supply for 3-phase and a 63 amp supply for single phase, unless they're in a regional area. And guys in regional areas in WA are really complaining that this is hurting them. What's your thoughts?
I think it's difficult. I think when we're going into these, look, let's talk in the local market in metropolitan Perth for large homes that have got an 80 or an 100 amp main switch. As such, it's just a switch. If they've got underfloor heating and a 50 kilowatt air conditioner and whatnot, they're probably pulling more than 32 amps a phase. And we come in and put solar on and have to put in a 32 amp circuit breaker for a main switch. We can cause some real problems and understand the rules. So we have to step it out to the client really, really carefully. Probably go and do a load profile analysis on the property, put some metering on in the beginning to see what they're actually pulling. On the really big houses, it can be a problem. Technically, what they're doing is against the connection rules, and because they've got an incorrect connection agreement with Western Power. So it's a bit of a problem. But on the flip side, it is allowing us to put on much larger systems to help people offset their energy use. So there's a flip side there. During the day, if they've got a large PV system, well, then they're able to pull more than 32 amps a phase, aren't they? So they can cover that. Regionally, really difficult with 32 amp circuit breaker. That's a tough one. Even if you put on battery, solar, it's still very limiting.
Is this something that you see other networks across the country are going to have to roll out as well? Or is this a WA problem? Because Western Power is owned by the government, right?
Correct.
So we hear in other states, if only our network operator was government owned, we wouldn't have these problems. But yet then we look to WA and you've got these problems.
Yeah, look, it's a really complex problem. And I'm certainly not the best person to talk about it, but we've got an ageing infrastructure, probably regionally as well. And there's a lot of hosting capacity problems there, and they're trying to resolve it. I don't think they're doing it to make people's lives unpleasant.
When you say hosting capacity, Rohan, how do you reckon this compares to the rest of the grid? I heard WA had some areas with more than 50% penetration. You've got some insight for us?
Oh, what solar penetration on the grid?
Yeah.
Oh, look, for sure. Look, Karl, I wouldn't know the numbers. I would assume without a doubt there would be huge penetration. I'd say some areas could be over 50%. Yeah, look, they're big problems. I don't think that's the issue for a 32 amp supply. I think, regionally, if they're operating swear lines and they're not getting the power down, or there's more properties going in and there's more connections, I think that might be the problem. I don't know. Maybe you need to get Nigel on, Luke, see if he'll do a podcast with you.
And, I reached out to him, and his response was he took it to Western Power's media team, and there's a whole host of hoops to jump through, and it ended up being a bit too hard for him. But we'd like to have him on to actually clarify. I've seen some of his responses online, and it's just saying, hey, we need to do this for the network.
Yeah, look, I really respect Nigel. He's very easily to contact and to speak to about it. So, what do I think about the 32 amp circuit breaker? Look, I don't like it, but I understand that that's the rule. And yeah, there's not a lot I can do about that, but you work around it. And look, and that's one of the things that me as a person I like to do. Let's work out how we can resolve it with what we've got. Let's find a creative solution here. Maybe there isn't, but certainly the ones that we've done regionally, we've come up with some good solutions and some good systems to install. SP Pro, I think, is a fantastic product to help people in those situations. I think it's probably the best product you can get, and it certainly gets a lot of people out of a jam. It's not a cheap solution, but it's a really good solution.
And which inverters do you usually pair it with? Fronius?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. We never have any problems with it. We've got no need to change. And then, we might put it's usually a Victron. We're trying out some of the new ARELs as well at the moment to DC couple with. What else is there? The Morningstars are okay, but their settings are a little bit hard for the lithium on some of their models to do. But yeah, look, the Fronius works really well with the SP Pro is what we found.
So it's been an opportunity.
Absolutely. It's always an opportunity. It really is. But look in the metro area, look, it is. It's the big houses that are the problem. But even then, 32 amps a phase is a lot. You're going to struggle to trip that out. It's really when you've got underfloor heating and a large aircon system. Induction stoves could be a problem. Actually, I think my stove's 40 amps. I don't know. I've got a 4-burner induction, and I think I've got a 16 mil cable running to it. It's about 30 meters from my switchboard.
Wow. Yeah. Look, I've got the same roll. It's probably rated at 60 amps. Mine's rated at 60, but I've decided that you'd need to have at least 4 sets of arms in order to be able to stir the pots, because it's just such a hell of a lot of power to be cooking with.
Yeah.
So you can't manage that much power on the stove in front of you. You have to turn it down. So the load would only be there for a very small amount of time, and hence it's almost crazy, the max demand calculations we've got to do to allow for, an 11 kilowatt induction stove and a 32 amp car charger and so on and so forth. They're just never going to happen at the same time.
Actually, speaking of that, I think that's where the new car chargers, where they've got load management control. So you can set an incoming limit, and if it starts exceeding that, then the charger will back down. So the car chargers that can do that will be really important going forward. So for people looking for car chargers, make sure they can do that so you don't trip out your house. Be very important, I think. Talking about what the future is, Luke, I think that, if you can fill up your car at work and come home and plug it in to discharge, well, then there's another big option or another big opportunity there. If there's cheaper energy at work during the day, great, you fill up and then go power your house at night. So maybe you're not going home to charge your car, maybe you're going home to discharge your car. And there's going to be a myriad of things that we're going to want to do. And I think having them be able to be flexible and be able to adapt to those changes is where we need to be.
Just looking at the data, I can't see myself bringing home much power from work because I've managed to push 1,172 kilowatt hours through my Tesla car in 4 weeks, which is a shitload of power.
How many Ks have you done now?
I've done 5,005 kilometres.
And how many of those kilometres were done in ludicrous mode?
Well, all of them. Look, it's a really easy car to drive normally, but normal for an electric car doesn't actually take any more energy to get to 100 kilometers an hour if you do it in 3 seconds or if you do it in 20 seconds. So you might as well do it in 3 because it's more fun.
All right, Rohan, there's not a whole lot of time left, but just curious just about some of the people that you really respect in the industry or admire. Is there anyone else you'd like to call out?
There's probably lots of people, Luke. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about earlier that I forgot about was, back at Infinite, when we were growing, it was male dominated. And look, I don't know when, our head count was probably 30 odd people, and we were sitting in a management meeting one day and it's just all dudes. And we sat there going, this isn't right. Like, we've got to get more women into this business. And we were really fortunate to have some fantastic women. We had Nikki Webster, Emma Schmidt, Morgan Munro. They were on our management team. And all of a sudden I think we had nearly 50% of our management team were women, and it was great. Look, and that's been really good. And I think people like Sam Kraft and Keisha Naranjo, they've been really instrumental in, just trying to help promote women in renewables. Their efforts have been great, and with the Awise group as well. There's probably a lot of people I could shout out for. There's lots of guys that I have great times with, and I bounce stuff off all the time. The one thing is Keisha left Feronius this year, and just recently, and I think that's it's a big loss. It's also a great opportunity for the next person. I don't ever begrudge anyone leaving. I think it's, when people got to go, they got to go, and one door closes, another one opens, etc. I'm a big believer in that. I think she was really good for that business and will be greatly missed. There's a big shout out for Keisha for that. She's been really helpful for me in my development as well. Like I said, I'm really grateful. I got to work with a lot of great people, and I still do, and I still get to learn, and I still love solar. I still love the fact you can put something in the sun and it operates something without any moving parts. It still gives me a bit of a buzz and keeps me going.
I'll add to that shout out for Keisha. I remember shortly after I got separated, she made a trip over to take me out for dinner and cheer me up a bit, which at the time, completely blew me away. So, big shout out for Keisha.
Yeah, 100%.
And just on Awise as well, the day before All Energy in Melbourne, they've got a day with a whole bunch of sessions and stuff. So if that's something that interests you, you can jump onto their socials or their website. Well, mate, we haven't got time for anything more, I wouldn't say. But thanks for coming on, man. It's actually been good to journey alongside you. As I said, I've always found you to be positive. You've always been supportive and just one of the great blokes in the industry.
Hey, so Rohan, anything that you'd like to tell anyone or a catch cry that you would live by?
It's having the ability to adapt to changing realities without sacrificing changeless values. That's something I always try and think about whenever I'm doing anything. The world changes a lot, and we've got to be able to adapt to that. But there's values that we want to uphold, and it feeds back to, I'm a big believer in a moral compass. So it feeds back to my moral compass. So yes, Karl, that would be my parting words.
Well, thanks again, Rohan, and thanks for listening. Please click subscribe or like and share it around to anyone who might get benefit. Cheers.